It is May 18th, and the track and field world is, I don't know. I think David posted a GIF like of a room on fire. There's just a lot of news taking place nowadays, a lot of off the track stuff. We've got some results to pour over from this past weekend at, some of the college conference championships. The Continental Tour made a stop in Nairobi. And then we've got some other big meets coming up. So lots to unpack. Where do you want to start off, Kyle? What's the first topic you would love to talk? What's grinding your gears nowadays?
Wait, can we start that Chris is a GIF guy, not a GIF guy? I've known you all these years and I never knew.
I go back and forth.
I'm also a gyro guy. Like I'm never gonna correct that. Where
let's start the pod over. You can't tell people that.
All right, what's the first topic we want to touch on, Kyle?
Well, let's start. I know at this point it's been a little while, but Kenya, and there were some really great results down in Nairobi. I think we saw Mary Moraa come out, run 158. She had like kind of a quiet indoor season. I hate calling like too flat, kind of quiet, but it was relatively quiet in that regard. We had some controversy around this. The president of Kenya tried to land a helicopter in like the warm-up area and tents were flying everywhere. Did you see that video?
Yeah, apparently one athlete like got a severe cut on their face or something like that. Luckily, no one else was hurt, but yeah, kind of a crazy move. I mean, I'm glad that the president of a nation is attending a track meet, but you can make a little bit less of an entrance.
Does Hayward Field have a helipad?
Well, how did Mac was there when Obama visited back in 2016?
I wasn't there. That was before. He went in 2008, but there should be a helipad on top of the tower.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
I've never seen that high. That's like the highest point in Eugene. You're not able to get on that roof easily to check it out, and you can't get much higher. So
no, neither have I. So that's okay.
Well, so I think before this race or this meet, the Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce was supposed to run on all of the posters, and she was in Kenya. Something that I sent Mac was really cool. It was like a video of her pre-meet day. We saw everything. It might surprise you. She's quite explosive at running up hills. But was in Kenya, ended up having to pull out last second due to an injury. And so the initial, we're going to obviously touch on this later in the podcast as well, but the initial star was no longer there. And Sha'Carri was moved to the 200 essentially because Shelly-Ann was there. And this is not because Shelly-Ann is like scared to race Sha'Carri. She is not. It's because the meet directors are positioning this as a potential Diamond League spot. And the idea being, if you have a really fast time in the 100 and a really fast time in the 200, really fast time in the 800 and the 15, like then maybe that says, Diamond League potential. And having a really fast second place time in the 100 doesn't necessarily move the needle in the same way. So Sha'Carri runs the 200. I mean, Mac, how far out are we calling that celebration? I know you were drawing lines on the track for us.
Well, I mean, those lines are already drawn on the track because it's a traditional track that should be a Diamond League certified track. No, but it's still insane. She was celebrating 20, 30 meters out and had that race won, I think 50 meters in. So
22:07.
Yeah, just winning convincingly. And, I think it's actually kind of cool that she's forced to run these twos and, kind of building that strength for later in the year. And her twos have progressed really well this year.
Do you think people
really promising?
Do you think people overrate the conversion of celebrations? It's like, she ran 22:0, no celebration. That's 21:3.
No, it's
like, I don't know. Your legs were still moving.
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, you're pretty relaxed at that point when you're celebrating. You're still moving pretty quickly. So, but people the subtraction that people are using is I think pretty ridiculous.
How do you feel about the outrage kind of towards the celebrations? Like I saw a lot of that online where it was sort of like, oh, that would have been a PR for Sha'Carri had she run through the line. And my whole thing is like, she's going to run fast when it matters. And, the PR is going to come. I don't think there's necessarily any athlete out there who's pissed that they didn't run a PR there. I guess you take advantage of the altitude a little bit, but I just felt like there was just so much. I get it when Bolt breaks the world record and celebrates, in the 100, and that's a huge what if, because it's sort of like, but that's a world record at the Olympics. This is just, an early season meet in Nairobi. There's other opportunities to run fast. So I don't necessarily think that people should have their pitchforks out for Sha'Carri celebrating and just making this race a little bit more entertaining. It honestly adds to the races later on in the season where you're like, okay, what is she going to run if she doesn't celebrate through the finish line? You're incentivized to watch more races.
That's like the athlete's decision to give up that personal best for that, because every athlete like runs really fast. You're in the best shape of your life, and you just assume the next race you're still going to be in the best race. Like the next one, there's always going to be more. And so, but we also like complain all the time that when people are like DQ'd for celebrating, which we saw at the ACC meet, which, maybe that was a taunt. In the 400, it cost them the team title. Not here nor there, but I feel like the tide is turning a little bit. Like people are starting to want the celebrations more and more.
I would say Sha'Carri would get criticized if she PB'd and ran too fast. Then she gets criticized if she celebrates too early and just wins the race. And to Bolt's thing, you don't really have to guess. Like he runs a couple hundredths faster. Like it's not like a big mystery. He's not running tenths faster. He's running a couple hundredths faster. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's what it probably would have been. And do you think Bolt regrets doing that? Or do you think Bolt is happy that he has those photos and that video of him celebrating and dancing all over everyone the last 20 meters? Like it's not, I think the whole argument is pretty dumb. The point is to win the race.
You know who won the race and then celebrated after was Ferdinand Omanyala.
Mm-hmm.
And
awesome.
This guy,
so cool. He's so good.
So I feel like right now, so he beats Kenny Van Erich and Marvin Bracey. He's beaten Jacobs. He's beaten Fred. Quite a list of names. And I feel like we've now tagged him as this like regular season hero.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not fair because he didn't get a good shake at it last year at Worlds, showing up right before the race. So this like, I don't know, like this moniker that he has to get a medal, which you do. Everyone needs to get a medal. And that's obviously the next thing for him, but I'm not ready to say he like can only do it in the regular season yet, because since he's been this good, he hasn't had the opportunity.
Yeah, I guess like who's out there calling him the Chris Paul of the men's 100, where it's like, oh, he can't get it done in the postseason, and it's like
there was one postseason.
There was one key postseason for him, and it just so happens that he got off the plane that same day and had to run the first round. So, yeah, I mean, even in all these graphics and discussions where it's like Jacobs versus Curley and Lyles versus Jacobs. It's funny because Omanyala just continues to be similar to Trayvon Brumell, just cast aside as just sort of like the best supporting actor potentially in that race. But, first time out, I mean, it wouldn't come as a huge shocker for him to win the whole thing.
984 is just fast too.
Yeah, and he races a ton. He shows up everywhere. He races anybody, and it's in most parts of the world, he's a crowd drawer. He puts people in seats.
He does numbies. Yeah. And I feel like Kenya is just so pumped to have one new event to watch. They got into the javelin a few years ago. Now they're into the 100. And he, as you said, he travels. Like he was just in Atlanta for a 150. That last 50 seemed very long. But a guy who shows up, so pumped to see him. And then really quick, just because this is, my favorite event, the 1500, Reynolds came out, beat Abel Kipsang. So Reynolds Chariot, for those who aren't familiar, ran 3:35 last year when he was 17. He won the U20s at Worlds, went on, and he actually finished second at World U20 cross country champs as well. So flexing some range. Opened up the season in 3:34, then ran 3:33 and just won in 3:32. Like this is the new guy. right? Like 18 years old, crazy talent. Abel Kipsang ran 3:31.0 last year at this meet, and he beat him this year around. But I will say I do like where Kipsang is at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like how the rich get richer, and in terms of just like the Kenyan 1500, like there's just no end in sight for them to have a top star in the event. Overall, I mean, a really good meet.
What event does Kenya not have right now that we can trade them for someone? You know, like they're very into the 100 right now.
Women's 400.
Yeah, like I think we might need to hold on to all of our women's 400 runners that we can. But yeah, we should just trade one athlete, and we can get one of their deep 1500 runners.
Overall, really good meet for Kenya. Like you kind of mentioned, Mary Moraa, Emmanuel Wanyoyi, Reynold Chariot, Ferdinand Omanyala. Like that stadium was rocking for their stars. We put out a graphic on our Instagram pages that was, if you got appointed the head of the Diamond League and you get to add 2 cities to the circuit, what would they be? We did not include Nairobi on there, which is kind of a little bit of an oversight, but we also do it for the engagement so that there are comments being like, what about Nairobi? But we had a slew of other cities: Miami, Boston, Madrid, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Mexico City, Kingston, Vancouver, and Lagos were the ones that we listed. What would be your guys's favorite picks here? Because, we are true New Yorkers and we would love for New York to be on this list. But the thing is, we've struck out every single time that we've hosted a track meet. And so it was not deserving of a spot.
Get LA out of here too.
Yeah,
LA,
that was
same exact thing.
That was a point of contention in our group chat that we have.
Yeah.
Me scolding Chris for even suggesting that New York should be on that list.
Well, my favorite is Boston, which was a very popular suggestion.
BU.
Where in Boston are you possibly hosting a Diamond League meet?
Would it be?
It's not happening.
No.
The most popular answers were Kingston, which I think a lot of people would agree with. Boston, but everyone is wrong. And Madrid had a lot of shout outs. And then I just think we have a big Canadian following, and that's why they were saying Vancouver.
But there's
I don't
no
think
track
anyone
in
not
Vancouver.
from Canada suggested Vancouver.
The other Lagos was another popular pick.
Well, Lagos is my pick personally, and that's why I would go Lagos over Kenya. And I guess we saw the stats from earlier in the year of who the viewership numbers from the World Championships. Lagos is a huge city, great sprint culture. I think that they would show up. I don't know. I like the pick.
Mexico City is a cool pick for that I liked. Just in particular, I mean, you throw it back to the old school Olympics. It would be, you get the altitude, so it'll be fast times in the sprints. But again, yeah, Kingston's
a no-brainer. I hear the fried
Kingston's a
chicken's
no-brainer.
very good.
Yeah, well, Kingston also, like, you just see what Champs is, and you're just like, all right, let's do that, but for the pros, and be awesome.
I don't know if track could handle like the Latin America fans, because they're too good of sports fans, or they start like booing other countries because they're good sports. Remember the pole vault in Brazil? They were booing. Who were they booing? And everyone was getting upset about it. Like, oh, it was just such bad fans and everything. And they were just rooting for their hometown like hero to win a gold medal.
Can we shift to actual bad fans? And that is everyone who's complaining about World Athletics social media.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to set this one up, this past weekend, Britton Wilson was the queen of the SEC championships, putting on remarkable performances in the 400 and 400 hurdles, where she broke her own collegiate record twice in a span of 24 hours, bringing it all the way down to, what was it, 49.13 in the 400, and then going on to run 53.28 in the 400 hurdles about 80-ish so minutes later. And combined the two times, it is the best 400 hurdles performance in a single day. Like, she had the previous record, I think, from like last year, where you just kind of combine the times. Sydney's somewhere like number 3 or 4 on that list.
When did Sydney do it?
Sydney did in 2017, I believe, while she was at Kentucky.
It was in college, obviously.
Yeah. And so, but we haven't seen like this Sydney do it. But Kyle, I guess like real quick before we discuss the social media antics, how are you feeling about your prediction from a couple of weeks ago that Britton Wilson will someday beat Sydney McLaughlin? You've got to be thinking like,
I feel
sooner
really
rather than later.
And when I said it, the amount of hate that I received for such a bold statement was wild. And I bet people are starting to come around to the idea a little bit more. And again, it was never like I said, it wasn't going to necessarily happen at the World Championships. It wasn't going to happen at the Olympics, or it wasn't going to happen the next race. It's just one day it was going to happen. And that was before, like, I was kind of just banking on the fact that like everyone has a bad race and everyone gets old eventually and like gets an injury, and one day like Britain might pick one up. And now I'm just like, Britain's just might run as fast as Sydney. Like, is that the craziest thing to possibly say? 49-1, like all by herself
in both of those races too, like when she crosses the finish line, it doesn't like she's not immediately collapsing to the ground. It's a hands on knees, gather your breath for a couple seconds, and she seemed totally fine. I think that there's more in the tank for her. I think the collegiate record might be 48. That's nuts.
What is her best event?
I selfishly want her to go after the 400 because after last year, no American women making the final, massively disappointing. She's putting up times that last year she would have been number 3 in the world for the 400. Only Marlady Paulino from Dominican Republic and Shanae Miller-Wiba, who's coming back from having a baby and likely not going to compete at this year's World Championships, like that puts her in the medal conversation immediately.
The World Athletics points gives the 400 the nod.
Yeah, I was gonna say the 400 just besides the points, participation, like the flat 400 is just widely more participated in. So like these records mean more in that event.
Yeah. So the way it all worked out was that.
What'd you say, Kyle?
How dare you say that, Mac? All world records are equal. Just as many people have run the 100 as they have pole vaulted before. Don't you know that?
Yeah, and same thing with ultra running.
Yeah.
So after the performance at SECs, the whole world is buzzing over Britton Wilson, and World Athletics puts together a nice graphic to celebrate, the performance, which ranks as number 4 on the US. She's now number 4 on the US all-time list and moved ahead of the legendary Allyson Felix, which they pointed out in their captions saying that Wilson has run sub 50 in her 3 outdoor races this year. And at age 22, she's already faster than Allyson Felix. Now, this led to the Allyson Felix hive on Twitter just coming out of the woodwork and being like, how dare you? And like just attacking World Athletics. And, poor World Athletics social media can't catch a break whenever they do anything. I think
they're pumped. I'm sure that tweet has more engagement than the majority of things that they've ever put out.
Right. I mean, like if you want the engagement, then it's been great. But sometimes like they get grief over, the colors of the graphic being, a little too American or whatever it might be. And
the athletes being in the wrong order.
Yeah. Somehow. It's like poor World Athletics graphics person. The CITIUS Mag graphics person, can take it in stride, but it's different when it comes from millions of followers. And so, yeah, people were pissed that they made this comparison to Allyson Felix. I didn't quite get it.
How dare you? Why? And like the fact that they added her as if like that was a big deal. It's like, I don't know. She knows her personal best. She saw Britain ran.
Exactly. Like it's no secret. It's a stat. Like, and it's a fact. And so even when I put out the tweet that, they put her at number 4 on the all-time list, I make a list of like the only women who have run faster are, and then, I list off, Sonia Richards-Ross, Valerie Briscoe-Hooks, and Chandra Cheeseborough. And like, that's cool because you realize that it's all right. It's the great Sonia Richards-Ross, and it's 2 medalists from the 84.
It's almost
games.
better to say who you've run faster than, because the whole point is now you have a greater appreciation for just how good Britain is. The fact that she's running faster than Allyson ever did. And that's a testament to the fact that Allyson is her name holds so much weight beyond the diehard track fans. And this is the job of the social media team, is to get people talking, get people interested, and like rally the troops around the new star who we are selling tickets for right now. Allyson will always have her legacy, and that's why we care about medals above all, right? Like, medals are the most important thing. Everyone knows that. But times are relevant to one another, and an athlete running faster than someone else, if that gets fringe fans excited to watch the next track meet, then the social media team did their job very effectively.
Well, the other part of it too is sort of like, I don't remember this kind of outrage over when they made a similar graphic and pointed out the fact that Arian Knighton ran faster than Usain Bolt did at, 17 or 18 years old. And it's like, all of a sudden,
it's because, Chris, it's because Usain Bolt eventually ran faster, whereas Allyson didn't. And
so Allyson can't defend herself in this situation by going out and running faster.
Or just like, she's not like, well, when I was 25, I ran faster than you. So,
okay, real quick, everyone was making this argument that like Allyson didn't focus on the 400 until much later
when she was
in
21.
her career. Yeah. So what you looked it up? How many times and like what did she run when she was?
She raced it at least like 5 times when she was 21 that season and ran 49. So yeah. I don't know. Like, obviously she wasn't competing at the Olympic and world champs in the event, but it's not like she had never done it.
But again, she was doing like international meets running the 400.
Yeah, like Britain's at our conference meet.
Mac, I like it when you bring it back to other sports. And Kyle in the lap count made the note of just kind of like, it's a fact LeBron James has scored more points than Michael Jordan.
You can still argue who's better.
Yeah, 100%. So how do you look at it?
I mean, what other sport do you have such a definite measurable than a flat 400 and time? Like, half of our sport is based off of time running around the track.
Mm-hmm.
There's medals and then there's PBs. Why is it upsetting to measure and compare one half of that? It's so important to the sport. It just makes so much sense to be able to compare new athletes to former athletes, just to get people to understand who they are and how good they are. Yeah, I mean, people do this in basketball and NFL for passing yards, scoring titles, and people are like, oh, they didn't even have the 3-point line when Wilt Chamberlain was playing, and shit, it's stuff like that, which is, put it into context. Yeah, it makes sense to say, but like, how else are you supposed to compare these people?
Yeah. I mean, the lists are there to, like, this is just simple record keeping and then stating facts.
Like, LeBron James has more points than anybody else. That's a fact.
Don't you dare say who, though.
They're like, oh, but Wilt Chamberlain didn't have a 3-point line. Like, okay, well, all right. And that's not even in this case. That's not even the case. That's not even the case here. Like, it's still a clock, and it's still 400 meters. Like, I guess the one gray area you could make is shoes.
Yeah.
But like over 400 meters, I don't know if it's that significant. That's the one, like, 3-point lines being added. But yeah, it's virtually the same thing. So yes, you can compare the two.
Can we talk about just Arkansas's performance as a whole? The SEC won the conference meet weekend, right? Like, we can all agree that was the craziest conference meet.
Scored like 200 points.
It was impressive. We should have someone there next year because
I think so.
There was just so much happening. So Britton Wilson, female MVP of the meet, men's MVP, like,
who got it?
I think it's Jaydon Hibbert.
Well, I mean, let's talk about Jaydon Hibbert. 18 years old, now the world U20 record holder. He jumped the collegiate record indoors in Albuquerque, and air is thin up there. Air is not thin at the SEC meet outdoors. It was a legitimate 17.87 meters. And the thing to note, and he's so, I'm going to be honest, like, I don't pay that close of attention to the triple jump, and I am following this kid incessantly. Like, it is incredible watching him because it's such a short approach. And now I'm all in on the triple jump solely because I like watching him so much. If he just takes a few steps back, he'll actually reach top speed and he's going to break the world record in no time.
It's impressive. And I think it comes at the right time for the triple jump because it's like, the event hasn't popped as much since Christian Taylor, I guess. Christian Taylor was like the big American star. And now in recent years, it's kind of the title has traded hands a bit. And like there's new people emerging.
It's
but the big thing
on the women's side, not the case.
No, on the women's side, not the case. But on the men's side, like Christian Taylor, there's so much attention around how close he was going to get to Jonathan Edwards' world record. And now I feel fairly confident that Jaydon Hibbert is going to give that a scare very soon.
I was going to say, has anyone asked him if his short approach right now is like this intentional just for the long season? Is he still working on things, or like, is it something that he just prefers? Has anyone asked him?
I don't think the media at the SEC championship was there to ask that, but I know that that's the type of question that Technical Mac just absolutely loves. And like, I mean, hopefully we get an opportunity to see him before Worlds, because, it's one thing to be captivated by the clips online of anytime he jumps. I want to see it in person.
Well, so I'm determining whether or not this year is the year of the jumps. We got really into the throws a couple of years ago, and now, we're diehard big throws guys. Achilles Smith, 7.08 in the long jump down Texas. Another Jamaican athlete excelling in the NCAA system in the field events. Just 1 centimeter further than Tara had jumped. And, we're set up right now, Chris, for a big showdown that is happening. Look, it's not the 1v1 that everyone wanted, but Tara and Quenisha are going to go down to Bermuda this weekend. And we're going to see if anyone can jump further than 7.08 or just further than the other person.
Yeah. Year of the jumps. That's kind of ring to it. All right. Should we move on? Well, the other person from Arkansas that you were kind of fawning over was Aiden Owens-Delorme, and his 400-meter hurdles performance. You were texting us about this late at night.
Well, that's generally when I do my stat research, is late at night. But Aiden is a decathlete, and he's very accomplished in that event. But at the SEC meet, he decided to jump in the 400-meter hurdles. He'd done one earlier in the season and then just ran prelims and finals. And he ended up running 48.26 seconds to win the conference title. And we know that, and Mac, you've watched Ashton Eaton do things in practice. I think you once referenced the fact just like watching him jump up the stands at Hayward was like the most athletic thing you'd ever seen in your life.
Yeah, he unbelievable, like just freak athlete, and seeing him do things outside of even his disciplines was even more impressive. Like, yeah, he could jump 26 feet or whatever for a long jump, but like watching him mess around doing stadiums or outside of practice, just spin kicks, like you're a different type of human.
Well, so Ashton has a faster flat 400 meter time than Aiden, and a faster high hurdles time than him. And in 2014, which was an off year, he really dedicated himself to the 400 hurdles, went around Europe, did 8 different 400 meter hurdle races, and only ran 48.69. So is Aiden just better at the 400 meter hurdles than he is at the decathlon all of a sudden, or he can just literally do anything?
Yeah, I think that they were intentionally holding him out of the multis just because they know he's going to have to do 2 more during NCAAs and then Worlds, because he represents Puerto Rico, and I don't think there's as much of a big championship that he has to put his body through. And so just not doing one here allowed him to kind of get that big rep in. And so maybe that is sort of what we see when he's fresh. But yeah, I mean, it's Damian Warner, right? And Kevin Mayer are the 2 guys to beat, but he's...
Well, in the NCAA, you got to get through Kyle Garland as well.
Yeah, which kind of So he's got his hands full, but I mean, specializing in this and mastering it is a big step forward, and it's points down the road. So
Next off year, 2026.
well, that was
But
Ashton's
is
big
he?
thing, was that he wanted it to pick and choose singular events to focus on during like the off years, because it gives him the most time and like less of a risk, to be injured for a championship. And so, yeah, hopefully that's the plan with him.
What does he need to get to be a threat for a team? Like 47.5?
Puerto Rican. He's probably there.
Yeah, he's.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you're right. Duh.
So he's on.
He's
Okay.
on.
Did it.
Congrats.
Congrats, man.
Congratulations.
See you in Budapest.
Let's move on to some more recent news. Last night, as the lap count the final touches were being put onto the newsletter and being sent over to editor Paul Snyder, we saw the news that the LA Grand Prix, which is set to take place next weekend in Los Angeles, has two of its headliners out for the meet. No Athing Mo and no Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. McLaughlin-Levrone was slated to run the 400, which would have been her first open 400 since, I believe, 2017, 18. And Athing hasn't raced at all this year. So we're going to continue to have to wait a little bit longer before two of Team USA's biggest stars race, which there's no injury cited at all. Coach Bobby Kersey told the Orange County Register that it was nothing major. And so this is a meet that I guess like he's kind of been billed as like one of the meet organizers. And it was a couple months back all about in the first ever buy or sell segment, I was buying Bobby Kersey because he said he was going to allow them to race a bit more. And now he's kind of gone back on his word. So if we did a buy or sell segment, I'm selling him, or it wasn't a good investment on my part. And so, yeah, there's no, those are two big stars that will be out for the LA Grand Prix. So let's discuss sort of like, this is, it was a big marketing effort in terms of just like to sell tickets. Sydney was plastered all over some of the early announcements.
Did you see Clayton Murphy's tweet? Someone said like, this is why I bought tickets. And he was like, what's your Venmo? I got you. Like, I'll reimburse you for this mishap. But good guy Clayton coming in.
Yeah. And so like, I guess Clayton did have like two very interesting tweets where it was sort of like, not all athletes have this flexibility to just be able to pull out of meets anytime they want. And it is sort of another part of the reason why with track, it's so hard to get so excited about an event, because the week of this happened to be 10 days out. You have fields constantly changing, and that's never going to really change unless you overhaul the whole system and you mandate athletes to compete. But
you almost made a graphic for it, Chris.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that I didn't. Well, not me, but the CITIUS Mag graphics person.
Whoever does that sort of
thing. Whoever is usually behind the social channels. But yeah, I guess so. What were your takeaways to just sort of like the whole discussion around both of them not racing? Like it's no surprise. Like I don't think anyone's totally shocked by it, but it's just a major bummer.
I mean, first we got to get rid of the bye at World Champs. The window's too wide open, and you should have a minimum number of races in order to qualify for Worlds. Like that's where I start. Like the infrastructure of the sport does not require athletes to race. You can just show up a year later because of something you did. And I just don't think we allow that in any other sport. And I don't understand why we do it in track and field. You got to show up when it counts, and you got to qualify like everyone else. And you got to play the regular season in order to qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the infrastructure of it. One, like, Bobby is never going to say if someone is hurt. So I don't understand that angle. Like a coach is never going to publicly say if an athlete is hurt in any way unless they are like out. So if either one of them has just like a slight strain, cramp.
11 days though before.
Yeah, but you have athletes that are going to win gold medals, and you just why would you risk that at all for a local meet that you're going to get no money and just risk the rest of your season. It doesn't make any sense. And you only run when you're an athlete that is that good, you only run meets when you're 100%.
You know what sucks
ever.
is because you know that in practice at some point in the surrounding few weeks, she ran an all-out 375 or something. You know, like
we don't know that. That's the thing, is we don't
well,
know
like
that.
assuming health, like in training, there are workouts that would be mind-blowing, I'm sure, being done. And that, you know, it's just like, just do it at a meet. But again, like it's not.
She doesn't owe that to anybody.
You don't know.
I should know. I mean, that's my angle. She doesn't owe shit. Either one of them doesn't owe shit to the sport, because it's not their fault for the reason the sport is built the way that it is. And
I do think at some point, I mean, fans are outraged, right? Like fans are pissed. People are buying tickets to come watch star athletes. And at some point, does an athlete say, look, everyone's mad at me every time we do this? Like, but maybe it's
the fans shouldn't be mad at the athlete. They should be mad at the system.
Yeah, but like, that's logical.
But also, like, business wise, they're probably driving up their appearance fees. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but that's what I would be doing if I were them. If you want me to show up to a meet, it's $250K or whatever the appearance fee is. And if you just don't compete, so eventually someone, if they want you bad enough, is going to pay you to show up. And if you're worth the amount that they are, why would you not do that? Like, do I think it's on World Athletics to mandate an amount of races? I don't think on like a Olympic or World's side of the sport. The Diamond League, certainly. Like, I think that those are separate. They should be separate. If there's this hypothetical league in the US, yeah, you should mandate races. You know, that would be the best. You see the NBA is mandating a certain percentage of games played in order to be voted MVP. That would be along the same lines of mandating X percent, you know, because they have a similar issue with load management. So we see in other sports, there's comparisons and they have similar problems, but again, we don't have a league. So it's not on the athletes.
What did you think of my suggestion a week ago on replicating golf's idea of doing like a player impact program in which, let's say World Athletics said, you know, we're putting up $10 million and the 20 athletes who have the biggest influence in the sport, not just between, you know, performance, but the ability to drive ticket sales and media attention, split that money. Do you think something like that would help incentivize? But then in the same way that golf does, have a minimum, you know, you have to participate in that number of.
Does this meet count for a thing in Sydney, even though they're not racing, because they were used in the also, hey, USATF, good job using your own video IP to promote the meet. Keep doing that. It's like the first time I've seen you do it.
Just have to edit it now.
Yeah, just you have billions of hours of video IP. Keep using it. Good job.
Yeah, you know, Kyle, with you bringing up just sort of like what she's maybe done in practice, I was gonna, you know what, I'll do it. I'll cast out a little conspiracy theory out there. They saw what Britton Wilson ran, and Sydney was not gonna run faster than that this weekend, and so it would be a bad look to send her out and run slower than Britton Wilson.
I don't think that's what it is at all. I like that you're throwing that out there.
Yeah,
Kyle, to your point, yeah, I do think the what is it, the PGA, what is it called again?
Player impact program.
Yeah, I think if it were done to that professional level, yeah, I agree. I think that would incentivize people trying harder, but I don't know if the top people in the sport would really care. I don't think that moves the needle.
It would have to be a significant amount of money. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And right now it could be, but there isn't that money right now. But
I still think yes, you have to run in a certain number of meets, and that's it. Like you have to do in every shoe contract. Hey, you have to run in 5 meets this year if you're going to get paid. Otherwise, you're getting reduced.
I'm sure probably has. She probably run. I mean, she definitely runs 5 meets a year. But yeah, but is it? Yeah.
I was
We're
gonna
at
say,
1.
like, does first round of the 800, second round and third round count for 3 races?
Athing hasn't raced yet.
No, nothing this
I mean,
indoor season.
usually it's unless she redid it. I mean, we all had 10 as a minimum on my Nike contract.
Yeah, but oftentimes in these contracts where, I mean, again, like I've never seen a contract that are probably the numbers that they're dealing with, but a lot of times there's no reductions in the beginning, especially for athletes coming out of college.
No, I had. Oh, I mean, I had.
I mean,
like,
athletes who like
4.
would still be in college.
Right.
So like a thing should obviously still be in college, right?
Mhm.
So
It's usually like what, first 4 years or something like that, like no reductions. That's how.
sometimes
Well,
that happens.
it really depends. But like mine, for example, I don't think I had reductions for my first 4 years or something like that. But a lot of people, it's immediately, it's year 1.
Yeah.
So it just depends on how good you are and what your contract is.
All right. Well, hopefully this isn't hurting her pocket too much. She's got other things going for her too.
But I think Mac makes an important point. It's like, and you could even see it in the statement. The idea is like, don't get mad at the athletes. Get mad at coach and the infrastructure of the sport. Like,
Yeah, that's what it is. Like, okay, hypothetically, if you in this system where like you should have to run at USATF meets to qualify to USAs, like, or if there's a league, you have to run in these meets in order to qualify to the championships, or like the DL final, like they do a good job. You have to run at the DL meets in order to qualify. Like that's the system. I think that there still is too much connection between the Diamond League and Worlds. Like,
yeah, now that I think
terms
about
of,
it, like we haven't
like
seen them
global-
announced for any Diamond League, so this is going to hurt their chances of being eligible to compete in the Diamond League final in September, which is the pre-classic, which for a lot of Nike athletes, that's one of the boxes that they have to try and check, but it's much harder to get into this year. So
that's actually going to be interesting.
yeah,
That's going to be some politics.
yeah. Well, there's also
don't
you
think-
do more
I don't think the
races.
Diamond
I
League
don't-
final will be a perfect ranking of everyone's Diamond.
I don't like that. I don't like that. Chris, I didn't think about that. That might get messy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's some other.
Do you have any other
news.
bad news, Chris?
Yeah. 10K road 10K world record holder and 2019 World Championship bronze medalist Rhonex Kipruto has been provisionally suspended for his athlete biological passport. They noticed some irregularities in it, which doesn't necessarily mean he tested positive for any sort of banned substance, but it was enough for the AIU to charge him.
Explain that really quick for everyone.
Yeah. So there was a lot of, I saw this in the Instagram comments. It's like, what does the athlete biological passport mean? Like, did he lie about his age? And it's like, no, that's not what it is. It's sort of like they take a look at your blood values over a long period of time. And when they notice any sort of weird spikes or dips on this chart or whatever it might be, it's enough for the AIU to look into. And in some cases, it could be, use of a banned substance, of diuretics, or whatever it might be. And so Kipruto gets this provisional suspension. He gets charged, but the full decision hasn't come out yet from the AIU, and we haven't really heard a whole lot as to what it was. They gave this window from like 2018 to 2020, and that's sort of like when they kind of noticed things.
2022.
2022.
It's 20. Yeah. Yeah.
But so like he was on this tear in 2019 and into early 2020 when he broke the road 10K world record, and his agent, they put together like a 10-page statement with.
Can I read my favorite quote?
Yeah, read your favorite quote.
Let us be very clear. World is full of cheating and deceit. We are not naive. Doping is, unfortunately, a lot of commas, part of a bigger scheme of things. We know that doping and performance-enhancing drugs are a problem of modern society, not just of sport. From boardroom and bedroom to arts, academia, to pressures of modern-day living, all the way to amateur, professional, university, and high school sports. I love it. What a good defense.
Yeah, way to throw the guy's getting the gas station pills into your defense here.
I love the idea of like people taking performance enhancing drugs in the boardroom as being like a defense.
Yeah. So the agent goes on to even list out the fact that he's been tested like 50 plus times, and brother Colm O'Connell, who's his coach, the famous coach of David
Has
Rudisha,
not had many athletes.
has never really
Zero.
taken on all that many athletes, and has never had
Zero.
an athlete test positive.
I think that's his first positive
Yeah,
test
no,
for
that's
an
his first
athlete that he's
positive
had.
test.
Well, that's not even a positive test. It's just it's a passport
Right.
violation.
Yeah. Sorry.
So
Yeah,
it's
like an
actually not
anti-doping
even a
violation.
positive.
Did
Yeah.
you see the defense? It was like, how would a coach that doesn't know how like technology works possibly think he's going to get around the doping control? Which is a great, I mean,
Yeah, if he kind of like,
it's kind of like, it's not a good argument, but it's an argument, I guess.
that's where like in the documentary they would pan over and like show that like he's still got like a BlackBerry or like an old phone,
Razor
It's
flip phone.
Razor flip phone or something like that.
like,
I mean,
why?
all things considered, just super unfortunate news for a world record holder to get suspended. I mean, just yesterday, Nicholas Kasembe, another Kenyan athlete, was suspended. So like things have not really improved for Kenya and their anti-doping efforts, where like they've decided to, they've held press conferences and stuff with Athletics Kenya and like the Kenyan anti-doping agency just committing a bunch of money to it. It's like, I don't know if you're necessarily throwing a lot more money into it is really all solving the problem. Like it just seems like there is a systemic issue out there right now, and it's unfortunate because like there's probably a good subsect of clean athletes as well, and so it just casts this weird cloud over some innocent people as well. So yeah, if he's found guilty, he faces like I think a 4-year suspension. He's 23 years old, not a death sentence necessarily, but still just sort of like that's a good chunk of his career.
How pissed is New York Roadrunners in Atlanta waking up this morning?
Pretty pissed. I mean, I guess like he won the NYC half last year and then ran and won
He's
the
won
Peachtree.
I think a couple times.
Yeah, including one year where there was like an additional bonus for like it being an anniversary year or something like that. Like, so he's run off with a lot of money. But I guess like this would be an interesting thing for us to get someone on who works on that side of things to learn more about just kind of like how Ilya Shobakova, the Russian marathoner who ran away with like hundreds of thousands of dollars from like the Chicago Marathon. Like I think now there's some measures put in place where it's like maybe they don't pay out the whole entire thing until like the P tests come back or something like that. There's like a window of time that like it takes a while for those.
No one gets paid for a very long time in the sport because
are you still waiting on like any sort of prize money or anything like that?
Yeah. I think we're settled.
Okay.
I never won very much.
All right. So to kind of close things out, what do we have coming up this weekend? We've got Trials of Miles Track Night NYC on Friday night. That'll be streamed live on the CITIUS Mag YouTube channel. Kyle's going to be behind the mic for a portion of it. Caitlin Hutchison will be running the mic in stadium, so you might hear her. They've got an $8,000 800-meter race on both the men's and women's side. Some good middle distance races on tap. You can watch it all for free on Friday afternoon. I believe stream starts at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
I think it actually starts even earlier. The elites start at 7:30, but
gotcha. And then we've also got on track nights taking place out in London, where we've got our brand new Europe correspondent. So get ready for the CITIUS Mag community to be introduced to David McCarthy, who will be our correspondent at on track nights in
we've
London,
got a whole squad
Paris,
out there.
and Vienna. Yeah, Johnny Pace will be doing some videos. Some Alicia Cushney will be doing our mix zone interviews. So some cool stuff coming out of on track nights in London, where at the night of the 10,000 PBs, Paul Chalimo will be going after one, his first 10K since 2019. Wayne Colati going after the standard as well. We put up a whole preview of it in the Lap Count newsletter and also on our Instagram channel. So check that out. I've got a podcast.
That's going to be streamed on On's YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yeah.
seeing this happen more and more. You know, Adidas put their meet on their channel. New Balance Nationals put it on their YouTube channel. I like this trend.
Yeah.
You think there's something there, Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
it's if it's a quality production and you've got this channel that, you know, if you look at these footwear brands, they have a ton of followers because there's, you know, the YouTube's a place where people go for their shoe reviews and their product teases and all that stuff. And so when Adidas has 900,000 subscribers or whatever it might be, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd call it a success if 80, 100,000 of them watched a meet or something like that. So
you're paying all this money to put on the meet. You want people to see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want eyeballs. That's the point.
And then we've also got the Bermuda Games taking place on Sunday. I believe that'll be televised on NBC from 2 to 4 p.m. I haven't seen too many fields aside from the announcement that it's Tara Davis versus Quenisha Burks in the long jump. Yeah, I haven't been able to find an entry list or anything like that for that meet, but should be good. That does it for this week in track and field. We'll catch you guys again next week.
Crack open an Olipop and watch some track this weekend.